Welcome, everybody, to the Best Advice podcast. Fraser and I talk to a lot of people who have had good advice over time. And so, what we thought we would do is just talk to people about the best advice that they've ever gotten. Now, that could be on, around business, it could be about being around financial advice, it could be about things people told you when you were growing up at school or uni, around strategies, around risks, around health, around sales techniques, things not to do, things to do better, technology that worked, anything really. So Fraser and I are going to have a chat over the next two episodes with each other about advice that we've gotten, and then we're going to come out and talk to other people about what the best advice they've got. Hi, Fraser.
I'm pretty good, thank you. Thanks for having me along. Whilst you were saying that, I was thinking of the concept of, sometimes the good advice or good things or good tips, and we're like, yeah, that was great, and we used to do it, and then we also stopped doing it. So I think part of this conversation for many people over the episodes that this podcast will exist for will be reminders. Oh yeah, I used to do something like that, and we stopped doing it. So some of those good tips or good advice or best advice might just end up being reminders in many cases.
That's it. So, Fraser, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, God, this is the really hard thing because we've had so many bits of advice. I think probably one of the things that sticks out for me that my father said to me many years ago and lived by this, and when I think about it, his parents lived by the same sort of motto, was this idea of not being a victim. And so he said to me, I don't want to be the victim, so that's up to me. And so when bad things happen in his life or obstacles present themselves, he said he can be the victim, take the victim mentality, or take the mentality of going, you know what can I actually do about that? There's certain things I can't control. But if I'm the victim in this situation, then it's up to other people to fix things, and it's up to me to be at the cause or at the effect of those things rather than taking control of what you can control. So I love that one. I've used it many, many times, and it's been something that I've always sort of, when things happen, you can get upset and annoyed and pissed off and all those things, and you do, because that's a human emotion. But then having that moment of clarity where you go, okay, if I don't want to be the victim, what have I got to do to get out of it? What can I physically or mentally, or what am I capable of? So that's probably one that springs to mind, but I'm sure there'll be plenty that bubble up as we have conversations.
I was gonna say that's a really good one. Actually, I might add that to my little kit bag, because many people probably wouldn't pick this, but I'm very introverted. And so when things happen, they play around my head a lot. And I think of all the catastrophic things that might happen, which the other person has not even started thinking about, has no, they've just said something or done something or invited me to something and moved on with their lives. And I'm sitting there going around in circles going, well, what if this happens? What did they mean by that? And you very quickly can get into that victim mentality.
Yeah, I've heard it presented before as cause and effect. Like, are you creating cause, or are you at the effect of some other cause? And so, it's sort of, there's many different ways of looking at it, but the way that my dad said it to me was very much around that concept. I don't want to be the victim, and that's what stuck in my brain. Right? Are you the victim in the situation? Has somebody else done something that's affected you? And I think in all aspects of personal life and business, there's many times when you can feel hard done by, especially for professional firms over the last few years with new regulatory changes and things being forced upon them. Like, you can be the victim, or you can be, you can take control of what you can control and race forward and go, I refuse to be a victim. And so that concept of refusing to be the victim really did put the onus back on me or whoever's thinking about it to go, it's up to you to not be the victim, not to play that victim card. And so often I'll see whenever something's wrong, and don't get me wrong, because we're human beings, we get into that pattern all the time, right? Something's happening, and the first response is, "Oh, what have they done to me, and why are they doing that to me?" But yeah, it's that conscious decision to go, "Okay, well, I'm going to choose now, make a choice."
Well, have you got an example of when you have implemented that piece of advice a couple
Probably
of times?
millions, but
Well, just give us
certainly,
one. Give us one.
certainly. Well, the big thing probably for me is around, and when my dad told me that, it was, being starting a new relationship, right? So it was splitting up with my mother and going on to go, well, I can dwell and be upset and etc. That's happened to me as well, and so I've been through that process, and so that was probably a really major part, because that's a huge change emotionally in a human being's life, right? So moving, transitioning relationships, or transitioning jobs, or transitioning, from major stepping stones in your life, that's probably where it's helped the most. Without getting into all the nitty gritty details, which we don't really want to get into, but certainly from, I guess everyone's going through stuff in their life, right? And so I think that's probably one that people could just pick up on it at some point and run with.
I think that's a good one.
What about you, Ben? Have you, if you were to think of some of the major ones in your life, what would you throw out there?
Yeah, I've got two. So one of them, yeah, I've got two. The first one, and they're probably more work related. I'll stick to work related ones this time, but they've had an effect broadly on my life. But the first one, I loved acting and being on stage when I was a kid, but people who know me also know I have both ADHD and dyslexia, and they got to a point where I never remembered the lines. And famously, I had a 10-page play, Alice in Wonderland, the court scene, and I skipped from the first paragraph to the last paragraph straight away, missed everything in the middle, and it just caused chaos. And I think that was the end of my thespian career. When I started in planning, I had the opportunity to start doing presentations, seminars to large groups of retirees. I worked for a super fund providing advice. And I was really, really nervous about getting up on stage and talking, because I'd had this experience. And my manager at the time, Sean, said to me, "They don't know what you're presenting. They don't care what you're presenting. They are here to hear you as an expert and have a good show and have a good experience and learn something. And so they are sitting there in the audience looking at you going, I hope he does an amazing job. I can't wait to learn stuff here. He's going to be amazing." And they're sending you those vibes. And that just clicked. And for somebody who's introverted and isn't comfortable in large groups, that really clicked for me. And I find presenting on stage now like one of the safest places I can be. Firstly, because one of the privileges of my career has been I tend to be ahead of everybody else on things like regulatory change and law change and best practice, because of the jobs I've had. And so most of the time when I'm presenting to people, they've never heard it or never thought of it or don't have all the details. And so I know more than everybody else. I'm not saying that arrogantly, but I just know more about this specific topic. And so they're there to learn. And so for me, it's one of the safest places I can be, because I'm teaching people, I'm helping people learn. They want a good show. They want to listen to me, but also I don't have to talk to them. I just have to talk at them. And sure, there's questions and answers, but I've also learned you don't always have to have the answer on the spot, and I'll get back to you on that. So that 15, maybe nearly 20 odd years ago was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, and it has worked wonders over my career.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. And you mentioned you had two.
So the other one was half from Sean as well, but also from Jason Andreessen, who some listeners might know. I was a career switcher, so I was a research scientist. A good piece of advice I got from someone was to study financial planning, because when I asked how to get into business, he said, "What do you mean?" And I went, "I don't know, I'm a scientist." And he said, "We'll go do financial planning and you'll learn about super and investments and the business more broadly and decide what you want to do." So I moved into financial planning, but I never thought, because I was a career changer and young, I never thought I had the authority to give advice and to, provide advice to my clients. So they were coming up to retirement. They had had long careers. I'm, 25 and green as anything and sitting in front of my first clients. And Sean said to me at that point, "Look, they're coming to us for advice because they don't know the answer, and you might not know the answer either, but you've got the tools and you've got the people around you to get to an answer for them. And so they don't know, you don't know. And even if you don't know, again, you can kind of go, that's really complicated. I haven't come across that. Let me check with the technical people and get that answer." And that puts them at ease as well. Um, so that was the first part of it. And then as I got promoted into management positions, I felt there were planners around me that I was helping with professional standards and technical support that had had 20, 30-year careers in financial advice. And I'm here 3-4 years into it. And Jason, and like I was struggling in the first couple of months of this role I had. And Jason said to me, "I didn't promote you into this role because you were going to be perfect on day one, but I promoted you into this role because you're really good at this and you're going to do a really good job at it. And I trust you." And like that just relaxed me. And so you people will promote you into roles and they'll give you roles and they'll give you opportunities because you are the right person at that time and in their view to do that, and they're backing you and they're supporting you. And you just have to meet those initial expectations and then grow from there. And things change and things happen and not everything's perfect, but you can trust that you got that job because you can do it. And I think for a lot of young planners and then people getting into more senior roles, it's that was a great piece of advice for me at the time that I kind of needed, because I was in my head and I was struggling with inferiority complex.
Yeah, I think as you tell those stories, the things that spring to my mind is how amazing mentors and people that we look up to, um, the amazing effect that they have, and they don't realize that they've had on your life. Like the comments that they would have made at the time, they've probably forgotten all about them, right? But it's stuck in your mind, and then that brings me to the concept of the responsibility of those who have had the benefit of experience to pass that on to those uh, young people coming through. I've worked with a few young people and given them lots of concepts and ideas and tips over the years. Never really thought too much about it. Every now and then someone comes back to me and goes, "You remember when you told me that thing?" And it's like, nope. But they did, which is great. And I think this is the benefit that people get out of these types of conversations, where you're actually bringing up what was good for you, and what was good for others. What about growing up, like at maybe from your grandparents or something like that? Can you remember your grandparents ever telling something to you that you went, "Oh, that's actually pretty good advice"?
Um,
I remember my grandmother saying to me once about, I think we were doing something, or like back in the day, it was like playing shop or doing something, like that's a concept of money, around money, and she just said off the cover, "It's not what you make, it's what you keep that matters." And that's the whole concept of financial planning, right? Um, and that's always stuck in my mind, as through life, I then turned into from a young kid into somebody who'd like to make sure you got savings, right? So it's not what you make, it's what you keep, and the more you keep, the more that's what life was about, And so it was an interesting. That's what maybe turned me into a tight ass. Maybe, I'm not sure. What about
which,
what about you
which
growing
brings us
up?
back, which brings us back to the first piece of advice. Um, I my I don't I off the top of my head I can't really I can't really think of anything from my grandparents. My grandfather though probably did something demonstrated and lived something similar to what you were talking about there. He came from war-torn Europe, and set up a business here that did very well for many years. And business, interestingly, for like a Jewish family, they were very open about money and business, and the family business meetings all happened at the dinner table once a week when we were there. And so I don't think I fully appreciated it, but now running my own business and trying to make a go of all the things that I'm doing, there's a lot of things that I think back to that those were some of the things they were talking about back then, that have kind of stuck in my head. So I can't put my finger on advice, but just the
concept of
talk
having,
about it and make everybody part of it was
yeah,
beneficial.
that concept of not making money a taboo subject, well, where it became pretty quickly for many households. And so if you can have an open conversation with it about it over the table, yeah.
Yeah, I think my dad's. I've got some more obvious ones from my dad. And the first one, like I mentioned a lot, a lot of people are focused on retirement and how quickly can I finish working. He's 82 and still working as a lawyer because he just loves being a lawyer. Every day he wakes up wanting to be a lawyer. Every day he goes to sleep wanting to be a lawyer. And all through the day he lives his best life being a lawyer. And not that I want to be a lawyer, and it's really weird that I've ended up in a place where I read legislation and help governments in consultations writing laws and stuff, because that was the last thing I wanted to do growing up. But just that concept of find the thing that you are passionate about and you want to wake up every day doing, and live your best life and just keep going as long as you can, because he's 82, still behaves like a 40-year-old, acts like a 40-year-old, looks like a 60-year-old, and is just living his absolute best life. And he might be getting towards the end of it. Not that I think he's fully embraced that, but there is an element of slowing down a little bit. But like that has been, I want to work forever, and I'm doing stuff I love, and I want to keep doing this, and I hope I can keep doing it forever. And I don't want to stop doing it.
That's
Every day I'm excited to get
that's
up and
kind
do
of
it.
good advice wrapped up in as a role model, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a concept, but I think you're absolutely right. If you're loving what you're doing, then you're having fun with it, and it's playful and it's enjoyable, and you're not working a day in your life. It's the old saying, right? The concept is to actually lean in and find some passion and purpose around it. But I think obviously he's found his passion and purpose as a lawyer, and that's also his identity, right? And so to be anything but that would be a loss, so to speak.
Oh, look, I think equally he would love to be a historian, and he reads a lot, and we've usually joked that if he did stop working, we would send him to uni to do a history degree, just so that he's got that.
Is he his own large language model? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. He doesn't stop giving you answers, even if you don't ask for them as well. There's a lot of hallucinations going on these days too.
Few hallucinations and a lot of extra words that you might not need.
Yeah. The other thing that I picked up that he does, and if you look at my pinned LinkedIn post, he says yes to everybody if they want to ask him a question. And even if he doesn't know the answer, even if he needs to point them to somebody else, he'll take the time to have a conversation with someone and just give them his knowledge or his wisdom, or point them in the right direction, or just as simple as hear them out and let them talk and get it off their chest. And I think
it sounds like we need to get him on the podcast.
We wouldn't get a word in, Fraser, which is fine. Like, it's what guests are there for. But yeah, we'll see. But actually, and I don't know if he would articulate that himself, to be honest. It's probably something I've observed with him. But like just before this, I was talking to someone about, what they're going through a sale of the business and trying to figure out what they might do next. And they had this random idea, and for whatever reason, they thought they'd reach out to me and have a chat. And I had a great chat with him and gave him some advice and pointed him in the right direction. And I might never speak to him again, or I might speak to him again. But, I feel good about today because he's got somewhere to move forwards and can move forward with certainty, and he's going to have a better life because I've given him 15, 20 minutes just to share some stuff that I know. And that's also a good piece of advice that I've picked up from my dad.
I remember another one actually now that we're chatting. There was when I was very early in my career, pretty much out of school, was working in a place where I got promoted to manager, and you're managing this, that, the other, and there was a lot going on, and we had a fair bit of stress. And I was telling my dad about it, and I was going blah 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 blah. I got to do this and got to do that, and etc etc. And he said, "How much are they paying you?" And it was like something measly amount of money at the time. I probably date myself by saying this, but it was like $8 an hour or something like that. And I'm like, and he goes, "They're just paying you to do the job. They're not paying you to stress about it." Right. And I was like, "Oh," he goes, "if they're paying you double that, then go ahead and stress. But at the moment, you're beating yourself up about something that you're not getting, you're getting paid there. You're not getting paid here in the car, driving around, talking to him. So just leave it at the door, pick it up when you get in, do your best when you get there." And I was like, that's good. That's good. I can stop worrying about it. So not paying you to stress. Then that was one of those things that, okay, great. Because I think a lot of people do when they start their career and they want to do the best job they can, they bring it home with them.
God, that would have been useful 10 years ago, Fraser, when I got hiccups for a week due to stress. That's good. That's really good, that one.
Yeah, I was just these things pop up. These things pop up. Like if you say to somebody, "Give us all the best advice," it's very hard to think about it all at one go. But I think in conversations like this, it pops up. So I'm sure we'll have plenty more as we interview people.
Have you got any pieces of advice that you've gotten that you feel guilty sometimes for having ignored, Fraser?
Hard because, and it's always hard for me to think about things in the past too, because I very much live in the now and in the future. But I think there's probably, we all get to know stuff, right? And then we don't go and put it in place. We've all been to the conference and gone, "That's a great idea. This is a great thing." And then the idea sits there as an idea, right? And the implementation doesn't get done. So I would say probably 1,000 things there, Ben, on the list of that's a good idea, but we haven't implemented it just yet. But it always comes back down to the prioritization, I guess, doesn't it? Is that a real priority if you don't actually want to go and put it in place, or are you getting distracted with other things? I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm sure now that you've asked that question, something will pop up in about 30 minutes from now. What about you? Was there any ironic advice that you went, "That's great advice," and then you never did it? It's obviously very good to think about, past investments would have been great, but not here to talk about those.
That time I could have bought Bitcoin at 74 cents.
Yeah. Well, it might be back there soon, so you can always see how you go on the roller coaster. But who knows? It might not be.
No, mine are all the eat healthy ones. And every time I finish something, I go, "Oh shit, shouldn't have eaten that," and then feel guilty about it. But yeah, those are definitely my ones.
Yeah. Is there anything that we've all been to, as we said, plenty of conferences, and some of the best tips we hear at conferences are standing around having a chat with people afterwards, whether that be over a drink or over a like you just said, some sugary sweets or something for afternoon tea that we never actually eat afternoon tea unless we're at an event. What has anything tips you've heard from other people around the industry that or profession that you go, that's a good idea?
I the one that plays on my head a little bit, and I wonder why more people don't do this, is around that content piece. And we think around not thinking we have anything valuable to say when day in and day out people come into our offices to get advice from us, but also that I can't possibly talk about that because it's so obvious that everybody knows how that particular thing works. So, in our profession, in terms of advice financial advice, for example, it's like I can't really I can't really write an article on salary sacrifice or do a video on salary sacrifice because, how everybody knows that. How obvious is it? But you see the people who are doing it and the success that they're having in their practices and their businesses, and they have had to set up their businesses in such a way that they don't see most of the people who actually come because they've put that out. They have to refer them to other people in the business. And there's almost, we're almost apologetic about the profession that we live and work in, and we shouldn't be, and we should be out there like spruiking it and telling people and sharing our knowledge and experience, and that will make your business as a planner much better, because people build trust with you before they walk in the door, and that's you should be leaning into that. And it doesn't take long from what I've observed to actually do that, and we don't do it, and I don't do it. To be honest, the number of ideas for blog articles and videos and podcasts and things that I've thought of that I write down and then never do anything with is ridiculous. But I think everybody else should follow this advice and do that.
Yeah. I had a piece of advice when I first started in 2001, when it was FSR before then, with a BDM at the time that said to me, I was talking about, being young and being people not taking me seriously. And he just simply said, that's in your head. That's something you think in your head. That's not what they're thinking. And so that goes back to similar to what you were saying before. But yeah. I think I've used that many times and said that many times and passed that on. Is that in your head or is that actually true?
Yeah.
And so when people start doubting themselves or doubting something or having those doubts, you just use that line. Is that in your head or is that actually true? And then they're forced to then think, it's just in my head. The evidence is all in my head. There is no evidence out there to suggest that's actually the case.
No, show me in the Corporations Act where it says that. Show me in our 6th Regulatory Guide where it says that. A lot of the things that we hold to be truths across our profession are stuff that licensees have often put in place to not protect you, to protect them, and it's not to protect them from what you're doing, it's to protect them from what that worst planner in the licensee has done or is doing. And it's not actually what you need to do as a professional. It's just it's in their head.
Yeah.
And then it's in your head.
I used to, going back to those days, I'm thinking back now, some of the earlier pieces of advice, generally comments, right? We call them pieces of advice or best advice, but often they're just a comment that somebody makes or something that they use. And one of the things that springs to my mind is I was having some trouble with people going, oh, yeah, but, like when you're talking about, I don't know, risk insurance or life insurance, you're talking about certain things, people are like, yeah, but we don't need that, and fobbing off your advice because they'll go, oh, we don't, And this particular one was somebody, and this advisor said to me, yeah, when somebody says to me, oh yeah, my partner or spouse can just get remarried, and he always used to he had a line that said, oh, you can, but is that what you want to happen? And so always driving that back to, oh, we can, you talk about any particular strategy that you want to recommend, and you go, and if somebody fobs it off, you go, yeah, is that what you want to happen? Are you wanting that outcome? And then they're like, oh no. So that was one that stuck in my brain just then for those earlier days.
Well, actually, you've just reminded me one that you gave me, and it was virtually the first time we met. We were doing some consultations with ASIC around them updating the SOA guidance, and you sat in that room and you went, but the law says you have to document it, and a document can be a recording, it can be a video, it can be a picture, it can be all sorts of things. And yeah, there's a couple of things that the law says needs to be in there. And I was heading down that path, but you articulated it so clearly in that almost split second that I think like you could see everybody in the room going, oh yeah, like, it's, but still to this day, a lot of people think an SOA is 100+ page printed pieces of paper.
Yeah, it's always been done that way, Ben. That's why we're always going to do it that way.
Yep.
Because the change is scary. I think last year at the Congress, we had Milo say something about change. He goes, people aren't scared of change. People are scared of loss, which I think was a great saying, and something that only 12 months later I've seen a lot of. Whenever somebody's up for change, they're scared of loss, and it's about trying to work through what that loss is and whether that's again in their head or whether that's actually going to happen and the outcome. And I think AI is a big part of that, right? People are looking into change, going, what I'm going to lose, without thinking about what they're going to lose. So it's just, interesting one to keep in the back of your mind. What are people actually scared of? Are they scared of the change, or are they scared of losing something?
Well, I think we have been rabbiting on for half an hour here, but there's something in this, Fraser. So we are going to reach out to people and see if they want to come share with us their best pieces of advice and see what we can learn.
Yeah, and we'll issue it up in this podcast style, not as a statement. Well, actually, as a statement, as a recorded statement that you can go back and listen to. Best advice, good advice, whatever it might be. If you know of anybody that you want to hear from, let us know.
Any last pieces of advice before we go, Fraser?
Yes, my advice is to tune into the next episode and the next episode and take those little gems and integrate them into your life.
Brilliant. And mine is have a phenomenal day, everyone. We'll catch you later.